Welcome back to another violin tutorial video. In this video about bow technique, we will be discussing the Martelé bow stroke. Much like détaché, this is a French term that means something very specific. Martelé in French means literally hammered. And you might think, well, what does hammered have to do with holding a bow or playing the violin? Well, it really has to do with the sound or the articulation that comes from doing this particular technique. It's not hammered as in, though, like some destructive force like Thor's hammer or something like that. It's more in reference to a clean attack at the beginning, a ringing sound that has some decay, and then a stop so that there is separation, or what we might call a staccato articulation between each note. So those are the three elements: clear attack, ring, and then stop. My favorite image in understanding this idea of a hammer and how it refers to sound is to think of something striking a bell. Now I'm going to show a little demonstration. This is not a bell, but it's something kind of close. I have my IKEA glass here and a spoon from home, and this has a little bit of a resonant quality. So listen for the ping of this hammered sound, and then the ring and the fact that it stops. And I'll do it a few times. Now, it's not a particularly beautiful sound, but you can hear those qualities. But there's kind of a ping, you can hear the ring of it, and then it stops, okay? So, how does that relate to what we do on the violin? The first question is how to create that little ping at the beginning. And we do that by preparing weight in the string and then releasing that weight with a lot of bow speed. Hopefully that sounds a little bit better than that twanging glass. But you can see those same elements are there. There's the hard consonant sound, the k at the beginning. There's the ring, and then we stop the bow on the string to make it sound separated. One other image that really helps when it comes to controlling that weight is the feeling of having energy stored and then energy released. So I'm going to get out a rubber band here and show you just a little bit about what that image could be. With a rubber band, when we stretch it, there's a lot of stored energy being ready to be released. But when we let go of that rubber band, it doesn't let go gradually. It lets go instantaneously. And that weight, or in this case, the energy basically just disappears. And I'm going to do it right towards the camera without hitting it. Oh, good. Good job. So that is the trick. The technique is to get the weight prepared, and sometimes it helps me to think about wiggling the string back and forth without making a squeak. That's how you know how much weight is required. And then when we release that weight, just like the rubber band, it disappears instantly and we use a lot of speed. The weight is stored, the energy is stored, and it's released. Now, to get a really good Martelé, or a good 5-star Martelé, if you're going to give yourself a ranking, it's getting that release to happen exactly at the right time. Sometimes we'll release the weight early, and we'll kind of miss the little pop at the beginning. It's far more common, though, to have the weight remain too long and have kind of a crunch at the beginning. We don't want a crunch with Martelé, we just want a ping, just like the pinging of the glass. Right, notice that I'm also playing basically in the upper half of the bow. This is where we get the most control with Martelé. It's not the only place we can do this stroke, but it's the most practical place, particularly when we apply it to what we do in music. So let's look at a couple of examples. If you have your violin book with you, the Martelé section starts on page 65 with Kreutzer number 7. And Kreutzer was a member of our French violin school, so it's very appropriate that we're learning Martelé from Kreutzer. But we're going to do very slow each note to set our Martelés. I'm thinking heavy, wiggle, release, heavy, wiggle, release. You can tell it's a really kind of sharp little jab of articulation. We're going to look at a couple of other Martelé examples, first from the violin book, and then from some repertoire. So if you look at page 66, this is from the Kreutzer Etude book. This is Kreutzer number 36. We have a set of staccatos marked by sforzandos. And the challenge here is getting the bowing to be coordinated and treating each of the sforzandos as a clear Martelé. Sometimes I call this the ticking clock etude because it has that character. You get the idea. Some of them are just very short, clean, small staccatos, and others are a very rapid bow speed jab demonstrating the Martelé. The next example is from Road number 2. And in the violin book, this is page 68. When we play this at a very slow tempo, it's perfect for Martelé practice. And when you do the whole etude at that tempo, by the time you're done, you're going to be tired, and you'll also feel like you have a lot of control, which is great. Which brings us to the idea of why practice this stroke. Obviously, there are examples in repertoire, but even more than that, it helps to develop a really good sense of control, of being able to bite the string for a good beginning to the note, a good attack, and then also tone development, just feeling like we can really feel that contact and get used to how to control it well. Helps our tone, helps our control, helps our attack of almost any note in any other bow stroke. Let's look at some actual musical examples now. This next one is from the Haydn Concerto in G major. It's the one that many of us learned fairly early on in our training. And depending on the tempo, this section in the exposition could be executed very nicely as a Martelé stroke. It gives a really nice sense of power, actually, in that part of the bow. This next one comes from the Beethoven Romance in F major. This is a round measure 69, and it's a very evocative section of the piece where the soloist is in conversation with the orchestra. And it almost feels like it's a contest of who can do the best Martelé, the orchestra or the soloist. So the orchestra goes jump, bum, 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 then the violin. And then there's another variation of that in the next entrance. The next example that's very common, and hopefully many of you will learn this piece, comes from the Beethoven Sonata number 5 that has the nickname the Spring Sonata. This is around measure 38, and we have some sforzandos on long notes and then very staccato quarters that I think are best executed with a Martelé stroke. And then one more example from that same sonata in the development section. Probably should have practiced that one a little bit more. You can hear that accentuation. And let's look at one more example from the Vitali Chaconne. This is in one of the later variations on the 3rd page, and then one of the last big aggressive variations near the end. This is at rehearsal number 9. can kind of hear a connection between that one and the Kreutzer ticking clock etude. The last example is a very heavy Martelé in the context of double stops, and the skill of being able to prepare with weight comes in handy in several areas in this section. This is rehearsal 16. You can see setting the bow on those octaves is a good Martelé concept, as well as these very marked staccatos on the eighth notes. Let's look at two other clips from students. One is Noel playing the opening of the Bach E major Preludio from the third partita, and Christelle playing two excerpts, one from the Tchaikovsky Concerto in the first section, and then the opening of the Brahms Violin Concerto. In conclusion, Martelé work improves everything that we do with our bow, not only when we see examples in the repertoire, but to help with tone and attack and generally just good control over what we're doing on the string. It's also the foundation of a very important stroke that we'll discuss in the next video, which is staccato.